This is the story of an activist who pleads for peace in public, but privately holds a sinister secret. It is the story of a young woman who risks everything to break free, and police around the world who vow never to stop until they avenge one man's fatal compulsion. Jurisdiction? The world. When crimes are committed, an international organization unites police officers to deliver justice. Interpol Investigates. Holly Maddux was the oldest child in a family of 7. She grew up in a middle-class home in the town of Tyler, Texas.
Holly was very much a caretaker, big sister, kind of surrogate mom in a lot of ways.
Holly's sister, Meg Wakeman.
Holly had a special closeness with all of us. Between Holly and I think there was a mentorship, and there was a very true big sister, kind of a guide.
Holly loved the arts, and in 1965, she left her family behind to study at Bryn Mawr College outside of Philadelphia. It is the early 1970s, and Philadelphia is a haven for artists and freethinkers of all types. Most notably, among them is Ira Einhorn, a man who rose to prominence during the 60s peace movement. He taught at the University of Pennsylvania. A self-styled guru of the decade of peace and love, Einhorn preaches nonviolence, campaigns against the war, and lectures to packed houses. He even claims to have created Philadelphia's first Earth Day in 1970, a claim widely disputed today. He's a respected intellectual, revered by the faithful. And although Holly doesn't know it at first, he's very, very dangerous. After she graduates from college, Holly meets the man who calls himself the Unicorn. Once he met her, he told his friends he was determined to have her, and quickly won her over. Their relationship continues for 5 years, but Holly decides it is time for her to move on. On September 10th, 1977, she tells Einhorn she's through with him.
What? What's wrong? Why? Because you don't listen to what I say. That's why.
But Einhorn is not through with Holly.
Where are you gonna go? No!
Over 1,250 miles away, in Texas, Holly's family becomes concerned. She has always kept in touch with them, writing letters frequently, but her last few letters trouble her family.
Her letters about Ira were always, Ira did this and Ira did that, and I think there was something underlying it that made us wonder, but what about you? It wasn't their relationship, it was all about Ira. It went into the dynamics of possession, and I don't believe she knew at that point how much of a possession that she was to him. And we didn't really know how to tell her, you need to get out and you need to run as fast as you can away from this man.
But then, Holly's letters stop completely. They haven't heard from her in weeks, and she's missed family birthdays, which she never does.
Here it was, the early middle of October, no birthday cards for the 3 birthdays in October.
Don't trust him?
There were no phone calls, no letters or anything. So this was very odd. We knew that something must have happened. So Mom tried to call her.
The last number they have for Holly is at Ira Einhorn's. Mrs. Maddux asks if he's seen Holly recently.
And I just thought maybe you might know where she
And he said, no, he hadn't. And he elaborated just a little bit and said, she went to the store a couple Sundays ago, and I got out of the shower, and then she was gone. She just never came back. And Mom thought he sounded awfully nonchalant, but then she also realized, well, they had just broken up, so maybe he's, upset about that.
Right. He hasn't heard.
The family reports Holly missing with Philadelphia police. But to the Philly PD, nothing about her disappearance seems unusual.
The police were unable to do any type of a search, really, because there wasn't any evidence that there was some crime committed. During that fall and winter, I think we were all holding on to whatever hope we had that, well, maybe she really does just want some time to herself. Maybe we're going to hear from her by Christmas, maybe something like that.
Yet the holiday season arrives with no word from Holly. In Texas, December 1977. Holly's family hires retired FBI Special Agent Bob Stevens to investigate her disappearance. The private investigator first wants to know about Holly. She excelled in high school and college, always doing the right thing.
I know a lot of people characterize Holly as an all-American girl, and that's still not quite doing her justice, even though she was so pretty and she was the cheerleader and salutatorian and all of that. She kind of went beyond all of those things. She didn't just stay in a category. She certainly had an aura about her. She had a power that was within that. She had a gentleness and kindness and goodness.
The family tells Stevens about Einhorn, the breakups, and the subsequent disappearance.
A particular card for...
Holly's sister told Stevens about a school trip to England in 1977. Holly was there on vacation with Einhorn.
No matter where they went in this person's house where they were staying, Ira kept tagging along. And Buffy and Holly couldn't have any private time together. And finally, Holly said, "Leave us alone."
Later, when she could talk, Holly told her sister of Einhorn's possessive actions and that he cheated on her with a number of women.
I'm here for you, okay?
Although she was worried what he would do when she left, she was determined to go.
Holly already had a place to stay, but it wasn't going to come open until, I believe, October 1st. So that was kind of the last we knew. We were waiting for information around October 1st about what her new phone and address and contact information would be.
It's hard to imagine a famous peace activist would hurt his girlfriend, but Bob Stevens has to check. He travels to Philadelphia and teams up with former FBI agent, Philly private investigator T.J. Felding. They want to question Einhorn. He is the last person known to have seen Holly.
Can I help you, Mr.
Einhorn casually reiterates that Holly went out around September 10th and never came back.
She's not here.
He appears unfazed by the investigators.
3 weeks ago, I haven't seen her since. Why did she leave? Sorry.
Without his permission or a warrant, they can't enter the apartment. But they can interview neighbors. Felding tracks down 2 students who have lived beneath Einhorn.
How long has it been like that? For a month?
The story they tell them is more ominous. In late September 1977, one student recalls hearing loud thumps and a single scream coming from Einhorn's apartment. Weeks later, the students noticed a foul odor and a brown fluid coming from the ceiling. They did their best to get rid of it, scrubbing over and over with bleach. The smell reminded their friends of a morgue. The building's landlord tells the PI the area above is a closet in Einhorn's apartment, and that he had tried to find whatever was causing the smell. But Einhorn refused to let him into his apartment, saying he had important papers to protect. It all seemed odd to the landlord, but this was Ira Einhorn, so he didn't force the issue. Felding takes the case to Philadelphia police homicide detective Michael Chitwood.
The investigation, when I read it, was like an Alfred Hitchcock story. There was suspense, there was sex, there was violence, and in my opinion, there was murder.
Chitwood believes Einhorn killed Holly in the apartment, but suspicion based on a private investigation is not enough for an arrest, especially with such a high-profile suspect.
My job was to re-interview everybody and develop enough probable cause to obtain a search warrant to go search Ira Einhorn's apartment.
The warrant application has to be perfect.
He was a big deal at Penn, he was a big deal at Harvard, he was associated with the Abby Hoffmans and Jerry Rubins of the world.
Amidst the political turmoil of the late 70s, false accusations against a leader of the peace movement would trigger a terrible backlash against the cops. Chitwood compiles witness statements about the stain, floor plans of the apartments, bank records that show over $20,000 untouched in Holly's account since that September. Everything suggests she was killed then and held at one time in Einhorn's closet. But to prove it, Chitwood must get in that apartment and to that closet. March 28th, 1979. The search warrant has been signed. Investigators hope to find hairs or traces of blood. 18 months after Holly vanished, her family hopes for resolution.
And they are now finally going to go in and get some answers, find out what happened to Holly. And I think after this long period of time, in a way, we knew we were going to be sensing some relief. But we also knew we were going to be sensing probably the devastation of loss.
Chitwood heads straight for the closet, directly above the stain in the apartment below. But the door is padlocked, and Einhorn claims there's no key.
I said, fine. I got a crowbar from the evidence technician, and instead of breaking the lock, I took the hasp off. So where the screws were screwed in, I took that off so that the lock was still intact, and I opened the door.
Inside the storage closet, Chitwood finds a trunk, a suitcase, a woman's purse, and notices the faint smell of decay.
Inside there were various pieces of identification of Holly Maddux, Social Security card, library card, driver's license, all types of property that women usually carry in their bag.
The suitcase is Holly's too. By now, Detective Chitwood is sure what he will find inside the trunk.
And I had been a homicide detective for a lot of years, and I've seen dead bodies, and I've seen decomposed bodies. This was decomposition. This was a dead body. This was death.
You got a key to this?
They're only a few more clues away from solving the mystery of what happened to Holly Maddux. But that's just the beginning of the deep mysteries that surround Ira Einhorn, the peace activist who's showing a violent side that may have turned deadly. In March 1979, Philadelphia police searched the apartment of peace activist Ira Einhorn after the mysterious disappearance of his girlfriend, Holly Maddux. Inside a locked closet, they find a locked trunk. Einhorn denies having keys to both locks. As he did with the door, Detective Michael Chitwood forces the hasp on the trunk. It's packed full. On top, a Philadelphia newspaper dated mid-September 1977.
That was the date we were focusing on. That's the date she disappeared. Now we got a steamer trunk. We got the smell of death. And I figured, uh-oh, this is for real. This is it.
Under more papers, a mummified human hand. There's no doubt it's Holly.
It almost looked like she was trying to push up, in my opinion. Like she had been placed in there and then, had tried to get out.
Crime Tech 1.
In the kitchen, Chitwood spots more possible evidence. A ring of keys,
He's on his way.
the ones Einhorn denied having.
One key fit the padlock to the closet door. The other key fit the lock to the steamer trunk. As far as I was concerned, that was the slam dunk. That was the home run because he had denied he had the keys, didn't know where they were.
In spite of the overwhelming evidence, police are shocked.
Never in a million years did we expect to go in there and find the body. It just wasn't feasible. It just couldn't happen. This was Ira Einhorn. He was a guru. He was a political person. So he was a cultural icon.
Philadelphia police charge the Unicorn with 1 count of murder. At autopsy, the medical examiner uses dental records to confirm the body is Holly Maddux.
Yes, please.
She was killed by at least 6 severe blows to the head, which caused multiple fractures. The ME notes that Holly might have been still clinging to life when placed in the footlocker. But still, the police keep asking why. And why would Einhorn keep the body? Forensic psychologist Dr. Chris Mohandy believes it's all about control.
What I think drove Ira to kill Holly Maddux was her rejection and leaving him. It was one of these, I'll be the one to say when this relationship ends and how it ends. And thus he took the control back that she was trying to take. And then he added another step to it. Not only are you not leaving me, but you're not leaving me even after you're dead. I'll show you.
A year and a half after Holly's disappearance, the Maddux family finally gets an answer. Now, they must cope with the truth.
I couldn't think of how to react. When I found out in the manner that Holly was killed and then stuffed in a trunk, I mean, just the idea of someone being beat to death and then stuffed in a trunk was so beyond my imagination. Holly was dead. I was never going to see my older sister again. She was never going to be a physical part of the family again. And how on earth are we going to get through this?
There is some consolation knowing Holly's killer is in custody.
Good, I'm glad they got him. I'm glad he didn't run. I guess there's going to be a trial now.
But it's not that simple. The fiery activist declares his innocence and makes an astonishing claim that Holly's murder was a CIA or KGB conspiracy to frame him.
This was big news.
Lynn Abraham was the Philadelphia district attorney on the Einhorn case.
So he made up the story. And CIA conspiracy theories always are big sellers, so a lot of his gullible friends believed it. They never even stopped for a minute to say, ooh, there's a dead body in this guy's closet. Ooh, I better step back from this. No, they just ran headlong into court, ready to stand up for their guy and say that he was really a wonderful human being.
Einhorn is represented by soon-to-be U.S. Senator Arlen Specter. At his arraignment, a wave of high-profile supporters, including investment bankers, university professors, even an Episcopalian minister, testify on his behalf. The momentum somehow sways a sympathetic judge, who, in a shocking move, releases Einhorn on bail.
And when that happened and he got out, I said to the DA, he's never going to go to trial. He's going to take off. There's no way in the world that this guy is going to go to trial. He's gone. Because he had connections all over the world.
Pre-trial hearings stretch from months to years. Then, on January 14th, 1981, Einhorn fails to appear for a hearing. Officers go to bring him in.
Police, open up.
But he does not answer his door.
What do you know? Everybody was sure exactly what would happen did happen. And it did. He skipped. He disappeared.
Desperate to find him, police track Einhorn's last movements. They learn he sold his car and drew most of his money from the bank, leaving less than a $10 balance. None of Einhorn's friends know where he has gone. On the brink of going to trial for murder, Einhorn's back in control.
After Ira disappeared in January of '81, that, of course, was another devastating loss.
Einhorn has taken his new girlfriend, Anna Jo Williams, with him and left the country. Police worry that Einhorn is drawing in another potential victim. Richard DiBenedetto, chief of the DA office's fugitive unit, now has the case. He checks into Einhorn's girlfriend.
A day or so after he fled, the girlfriend got a call from him, and her sister drove her to the airport and she got on a plane. Now, the sister wasn't sure where she was going, but she thought it might have been either England or Ireland.
Because Einhorn likely fled the state and the country, the FBI joins the case, and Special Agent Michael Carbonell partners with DiBenedetto.
The FBI obtained a warrant for his arrest. It's called unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. And then he became a federal fugitive, which gave us the authority to look for him anywhere in the world.
To best do that, the Philadelphia police and the FBI need Interpol. At the time, John Emhoff was the head of Interpol US.
When I first came to Interpol, Ira Einhorn was a premier fugitive from the United States that we wanted to see brought to justice. He was a high priority because of the heinousness of the crime. He was somebody who was in the public eye, and basically he was thumbing his nose at society, saying, I can do as I please because of who I am.
Right away, Interpol issues a red notice, their highest priority fugitive alert.
The red notice told the world that the United States, on behalf of the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, was looking for a murderer, Ira Einhorn.
U.S. Department of Justice Interpol liaison, Mary Jo Grottenrath.
It gave them his picture, his fingerprints, his physical description, as much as we knew about any habits of his that might help the police to locate him.
DiBenedetto and Carbonell begin with Einhorn's collection of addresses, confiscated during the search of his apartment.
Second place is...
The manhunt won't be easy. The famous fugitive has more than 350 contacts in over 20 countries.
Boston.
Fugitive investigations are difficult enough domestically. They're twice as complicated when you have to deal across international borders. So the officer needs to have somebody that he can reach out to, and Interpol puts his badge out and makes it an international badge for him.
But even with Interpol's help, months pass. Ira Einhorn is out there, somewhere, seducing new supporters, perhaps trolling for new victims.
Einhorn is really your prototypical cult leader personality. He's charming, he's narcissistic, he's psychopathic in that he's enjoying of using people. And those are the same characteristics that guys like Jim Jones, David Koresh, Charlie Manson, they all have those types of characteristics and feel that it's okay to use all these people, and they're very adept at finding people to use. In a way, Einhorn had his own little cult going on.
Ira had a unique ability to attract women. I can't explain why. And he always, always, always took up with pretty women who had money. He wasn't interested in poor girls. They were not in his galaxy of interest. He always picked up with women who could support him.
In this way, the fugitive remains well-funded, protected, and hidden from police. While the search for Einhorn continues, police delve into his past for clues. They find ex-girlfriends who tell of terrible abuse, especially when they tried to leave him. Abusers like Einhorn do not like rejection.
And that moment of deflation is a very dangerous moment because they don't like to experience that feeling. They'd rather feel powerful and in control. The only way to restore that in that moment is to become extremely violent.
The Philadelphia police and the FBI are desperate to catch Einhorn, not just to bring him to trial for Holly's murder, but because he might also kill Anna Jo Williams if she tries to leave him.
Once a person has crossed the threshold of taking a human life, there's nothing holding him back. He's got no remorse. There's nothing to stop him from doing it.
The threat to Anna Jo Williams is very real. Police fear Ira Einhorn is not yet finished. After police discover the mummified body of Holly Maddux in Philadelphia, Interpol and police around the world search for her suspected killer, famous peace activist Ira Einhorn, who jumped bail. Philadelphia police and the FBI comb through evidence collected from Einhorn's apartment. Some of the most disturbing pieces of evidence are Holly's journals. Her writing reveals details of a terrifying and abusive relationship. Holly's sister, Meg Wakeman.
The investigators found that the relationship was more than just rocky emotionally. They found that it was very physically abusive, and they could see her withdrawing into the stance that someone who's abused takes.
Police also scour Einhorn's journals and discover a chilling penchant for violence.
He probably enjoyed writing about it, enjoyed reflecting upon it, and considered it important because he had done it and thus worth memorializing.
Some entries seem to muse over the possibility of murder, corroborating the belief that Einhorn killed Holly to possess and control her fully. It was becoming clear that Einhorn's violence wasn't confined to Holly. Interpol's John M. Hoff.
Law enforcement was very intent on bringing Ira Einhorn to justice, but there was a great deal of concern that he would kill again. He quite clearly had no compunction about what he had done when he killed Holly Maddux. And for someone to kill so ruthlessly, you would think it's not a stretch that he would do it again.
Einhorn's journals provide other valuable clues. Fugitive tracker Richard DiBenedetto.
They were helpful in the sense that he talked about different acquaintances he had in other countries and how he had traveled to those countries over a period of years.
Einhorn seems particularly fond of the UK, and police believe he's in England or Ireland. In fact, they are correct. Einhorn and Anna Jo Williams have settled into Dublin, renting an apartment from Professor Dennis Weir and his wife. The fugitive uses his real name, though he tells the Weirs he is an American writer. Einhorn rarely goes out, and only occasionally talks to the Weirs, who grow increasingly uneasy with their new tenant.
There were various things about his manner which were a little bit strange, but they're very hard to define. I'm talking about a look, a mannerism, just a way of speaking that made one a little bit uncomfortable.
The Maddux family worries for Anna Jo Williams.
I thought, you know, does she know what's going on? Does she have any idea that this guy had a dead body in his closet for 1.5 years? Is she even thinking about the possibility that he could kill her for whatever reason he killed Holly?
In April 1981, the Weirs plan a trip to Chicago.
And so we told Ira that we were going to go to the States. And he became a little agitated at that point. And he said to my wife, "Don't talk about me in the States or you'll get me extradited." It was obviously a provocative sort of thing to say, and one which would inevitably excite one's curiosity.
Once in the U.S., Dennis Weir asks around, learns his tenant's true identity, and immediately goes to the Chicago FBI. When Philadelphia authorities learn of the sighting, their elation is short-lived.
Unfortunately, at the time, there was no extradition treaty between us and the Irish government.
It's maddening bad luck. They know where he is, but they can't arrest him.
The Irish police are not going to hold Mr. Einhorn because they can't extradite him back here. And since he's broken no laws in the Republic of Ireland, they have really no right by their law to hold him. So we were stuck.
Irish police can only escort the Weirs when they return home and help evict Einhorn. One of the world's most wanted fugitives simply walks away.
Off he went. I remember very well. He scurried off. It was a strange feeling in the silence of the house, wondering what happens next.
Although the Weirs don't realize it, they haven't seen the last of Ira Einhorn. In Philadelphia, Carbonell and Di Benedetto keep working.
It was very frustrating when we discovered that Einhorn was in Ireland because we really couldn't do anything.
But by the same token, at least we had known where he was. So, I mean, that was of some help.
Now the manhunt has to sharpen its focus. Investigators update the Interpol Red Notice, hoping if Einhorn leaves Ireland, someone will spot him entering a country that will extradite him. With Einhorn's trail still hot, they immediately dispatch a detective to Dublin to ask questions. He cannot act under any authority, and if he runs into Einhorn, he can't arrest him. No one knows where Einhorn and Williams are now, but one neighbor says she recently got a letter from Williams. The letter itself contains no clues, but the envelope is postmarked from Wales. Investigators have tracked Einhorn from Philadelphia to Dublin and now to Wales. Tipped by a local innkeeper, Scotland Yard tracks Einhorn to a Welsh inn. The innkeeper recognized Einhorn from a TV program, but by the time the authorities arrive, the fugitive is long gone, and he's left no trace. For Holly Maddux's family, it's more terrible news.
That was another devastating loss because there was the potential to have some type of closure within a reasonable period of time.
Now they must keep waiting. Di Benedetto vows not to let the family down.
Well, my gut feeling was that he was probably still around and somewhere in Ireland, maybe out in the countryside at this point or something.
At the time, Dennis Weir teaches physics at Dublin's renowned Trinity College. In May of 1985, as he leaves the cafeteria, he runs into the fugitive.
I had this direct eye-to-eye confrontation with him. It was quite a mental exercise to decide what to do, especially when he simply brushed straight past me without acknowledging my presence and started to walk up the stairs.
The professor decides to follow the suspected murderer, no matter the risk. Einhorn refuses to talk.
And I actually walked behind him until we reached the front square of the college, that is to say, exited the building, and I stood there to watch him walk into the distance.
Professor Weir immediately contacts Philadelphia authorities. By this time, the U.S. has an extradition treaty with Ireland. Detective Michael Gormley of the Irish police launches the offensive in a matter of hours. But it's too late.
By the time we located Ira Einhorn's address in Dublin, he was gone at that stage. He had gone.
The apartment is one of a few hideaways Einhorn has been using. Einhorn has an endless supply of money. Interpol hopes neighbors can help. Many know the American couple, and some saw them leave suddenly the day before.
I spoke to about a dozen people. Every one of them described him as a charmer, well-read, well-versed, and could speak about any subject under the sun.
They knew he hung out at the college and at local bookshops, but not today. Another miss, but police won't give up.
Obviously, it was very frustrating again. By the same token, I was somewhat optimistic because now we had found him twice in a period of 4 or 5 years. You know, maybe our chances were getting better here now.
But Einhorn remains elusive. Then, in late 1985, the break police had been waiting for literally walks in their door. Just 6 months after the last Dublin sighting, Anna Jo Williams suddenly resurfaces in the United States, willing to talk. Fugitive and murder suspect Ira Einhorn is last seen in 1985 in Dublin, Ireland, where he lived with his American girlfriend. 6 months later, the girlfriend returns to Philadelphia, alone, and comes to the police on the advice of her lawyer. This might be it, if Anna Jo Williams will lead them to Einhorn. She dashes their hopes, saying she doesn't know where he is, since they separated in Ireland. He was becoming more violent toward her, and she got scared. Luckily, he decided she was a nuisance to him, and he threw her out. But she offers police 2 solid leads. One is that Einhorn kept contact with a rich heiress in Canada. The second lead is that Einhorn spent a lot of time with one particular friend. A man named Nicholas Edwards, who owns a Dublin bookstore. Right away, Irish police set up surveillance, hoping Einhorn will show. Yet again, the fugitive stays underground. Interpol's Mary Jo Gruttenrath.
The reason it was hard to find Einhorn was he was resourceful himself. He was an intelligent man. He was clever. He took up with people who would cover for him. And he was on the move.
But so are police. FBI Special Agent Michael Carbonell works with Royal Canadian Mounted Police to track down the wealthy heiress mentioned by Einhorn's girlfriend, Mary Jo Williams.
She refused to be interviewed, and then they threatened her with some legal action. She came to the United States and provided a statement.
The FBI and the Philadelphia DA interrogate the heiress. At first, she is elusive, still instinctively protective of Einhorn.
One of the things that enables a guy like Einhorn to exist, a psychopathic person who's going to use people, is that normal human beings want to trust. A guy like Ira Einhorn will engage in relationships with women, seduce them with what they want to hear, bring them in, and then gradually get them accustomed to what the real agenda is, which is to control and dominate.
Facing prison time, she agrees to talk. She admits to funneling money to the fugitive.
And that is one of the reasons he was able to live overseas and to stay ahead of us on the run, because he was actually receiving financial assistance from this person.
But she recently broke ties with him.
She supposedly finally realized that he really did kill Holly Maddux, that he had been conning her all along.
Finally, the heiress tells them what they want to know. She thinks Einhorn is in Stockholm, Sweden, living with a woman named Marie Valborg. Investigators move from Dublin to Stockholm. Working through Interpol, Philadelphia authorities have Stockholm police rush Valborg's home. In Einhorn's room, Stockholm police find a hot cup of coffee and a cigarette still burning in the ashtray. Someone must have tipped Einhorn off. Someone who knew the Canadian heiress ID'd him. In any case, he's gone.
You're following a trail, and sometimes that trail is cold, sometimes it's hot. In the Ira Einhorn case, had several hot trails, and they don't come up that often. So when you are real close and you almost catch somebody, huge frustration.
They miss him by perhaps seconds. And a massive search in Stockholm comes up empty. Once again, Ira Einhorn has vanished. And soon, so does Marie Valborg.
We sent leads to virtually every European country. Spain, Germany, the Scandinavian countries, and none of the leads ever panned out. But, you know, in this business, you keep, you know, when you develop leads, you send them because you never know.
Now all the FBI and the Philadelphia police can do is wait. Almost 11 years after the brutal murder of Holly Maddux, her killer, Ira Einhorn, remains on the run. The grueling wait for answers takes its toll on Holly's parents.
Even though it damaged their health, certainly, it took years off their lives. It hurt them so much to the core that they couldn't even heal from deep inside. We were angry that he kept getting away.
Both Fred and Elizabeth Maddux die while their daughter's killer is still on the run. The family keeps pressuring the police, and in 1993, a Philadelphia jury convicts Einhorn in absentia of murder. Carbonell and DiBenedetto still have to find him.
Weekly, we would meet and discuss what to do, because sometimes you just run out of leads. There's, you know, you've done it, you've been over it, there's nothing. It languishes, and we would go back over and re-interview people, and, you know, we knew the guy was still out there.
Now, they just have to find him. Finally, in 1997, another big break, thanks to authorities' attention to the smallest detail. Interpol Sweden runs a check on Einhorn and his latest girlfriend, Marie Valborg. And this time, they get a hit. A woman named Marie Valborg Edwards has applied for a driver's license in France. Police believe she is living in Champagne-Mouton, France.
Well, when this information came to us, Rich and I knew that we had Einhorn.
Michael Carbonell and Richard DiBenedetto have worked together on the case continuously for about 9 years.
That's the most excited that both of us were on the case, because we were both convinced that he was in France with her.
But there's a problem.
This house is out in the countryside, and it's kind of isolated.
French authorities must go in undercover to get close.
What they were doing was, over a period of a few weeks, they were posing as fishermen in a stream by the house.
One day, they spot someone there. It's Einhorn. It's now or never.
We were concerned that Einhorn would flee once again. We didn't want that to happen because we had never been closer to him. I mean, this was it.
On June 13th, 1997, French police raid Einhorn's house in Champagne-Mouton and capture the fugitive, who remains smug, smiling at the cameras.
So when the French police actually laid their hands on him and he was in handcuffs, it was a huge moment. It was a huge moment. Rich and I were just ecstatic. It was one of the more satisfying moments of my career.
I felt like justice had been served, and I was especially happy for the Maddux family.
But it's not over yet. France refuses to extradite Einhorn because he's already been convicted, and they refuse to hand him over if he might face the death penalty. 4 years of legal wrangling commence. The U.S. authorities have to convince the French government they won't seek the death penalty, and they will retry Einhorn. On July 20th, 2001, Ira Einhorn once again sets foot on American soil in Philadelphia, this time in shackles, surrounded by U.S. Marshals. It's been over 20 years since he jumped bail and fled.
It was a huge victory for justice just in getting him back here, because everything was back on track as it should have been.
On October 17th, 2002, a jury finds Ira Einhorn guilty of Holly's murder and sentences him to life in prison without parole. Thanks to the police work of agencies around the world working with Interpol, Ira Einhorn will never leave prison alive.
I wish my parents could have been alive to be in the courtroom to see the verdict come down and realize that their daughter's killer was now not going to have a life of freedom like he had enjoyed and flaunted in everyone's face. But I think all of us all feel that they know it,